Good morning, everyone. Can I hear that again? Good morning, everyone. Yes, all right. So, thanks to all of you who came last night for the induction ceremony. That was so fabulous, and it was so fun to see this auditorium packed to overflowing with all the families and friends of our new members. It was just a truly joyous occasion. So I think you all know me, but in case, I'm Marcia McNutt. I have the honor of being president of the National Academy of Sciences and welcoming you to the 161st meeting of the Academy. And this year is a very special year for us here because it is the 100th anniversary of this building. And as you walk around in the hallways, you'll see some exhibits that show the history of the building and how intertwined it was with the history of the nation and with the advice that we have been giving over the years, the highlights from our work. So I, first of all, want to welcome all the members who are here in the auditorium and also welcome to the members who are viewing online. I know that we also have some people who are just interested in science who may be tuning in today, and they are very welcome as well. So I thought I'd start this presentation with showing you some of the publications, some of the reports we put out in the past year. These are all from 2023, and that all of them have been out long enough that we have enough statistics to gauge the uptake of them. And you can see that each of these reports has had, of the order of 20,000, 10 to 20,000 users who are viewing them. There are twice as many online sessions and a healthy number of people who have downloaded these reports because after seeing them online, they realize they want to have their own copy of them. All of our work is, of course, freely available on the web. Anyone can go to the National Academy Press and either read online or download our reports. What's also, I thought, interesting of these 5 top publications in terms of online engagement is the variety of the topics. Everything from, on the right side of the screen, addressing the long-term effects of COVID, and that is something that affected each and every one of us. All of us had to deal with COVID, not necessarily long COVID, but all of us had to deal with COVID. And I'm sure many of us actually know someone personally who has long COVID and is still suffering through that. And then right next to that, we have laying the foundation for new and advanced nuclear reactors in the United States. Now, I'm not expecting a nuclear reactor in my backyard anytime soon, but it's clearly different scales of the public who would be interested in these reports. And I'll talk more about the results from a couple of them as we go forward. Now, one thing that I have done the past few years is tried to organize my presentation of what are the highlights from the last year under the rubric of our strategic plan. And the reason I do that is that I think it's very important as an organization that we're following our own guidance in terms of what we want to prioritize in our work to make sure we achieve our mission. And so I think it's helpful to show you all of our activities in the context of the plan. Now, for the strategic plan 2020 to 2025, the first goal in that is to apply science for the benefit of humanity. Now, for alert people in the audience, you may remember that last year I announced we would be kicking off a new strategic planning process because our current plan is getting a little old in the teeth, and we decided it would be better to have a new plan in place before 2026 when my successor comes in, just so whoever comes after me doesn't immediately have to generate a plan before they actually even know intimately how the Academy works and what might be successful strategies. Now, under Goal 1, We have a number of objectives: catalyze action, build communities across disciplines and cultures, and increase capacity in the U.S. and abroad, and I'll speak to each of these. Now, it's hard to argue that there's any topic for which we more desperately need to catalyze action than climate change. And so on July 11th of last year, 2023, we launched a new interdisciplinary cross-academy initiative called Climate Crossroads. Climate Crossroads engages all three of the academies. It includes engineering and medicine, because after all, we can't solve the problem of climate change without re-engineering our infrastructure. And of course, climate change is one of the current threats to human health that people are concerned about. And it also includes all divisions of the National Research Council. It obviously includes Earth and Life Studies, because that's where a lot of the science of predicting what will be our climate change future comes from. But in addition, it includes the Transportation Research Board, because of course transportation is one of the largest emissions of greenhouse gases. It also includes policy and global affairs, because climate change is something we have to deal with on an international basis. So this new initiative includes everything in the NRC and all three academies. Here are some of the major activities that they are undertaking: a project on AI and climate change decision-making, climate resilient communities, and that's working with state and local governments to help build those, higher education and transformative climate action, and thriving ecosystems and nature-based solutions. Now, the last two on this list were actually the topic of panels that we held with eminent scientists on these panels. And it was a gathering at the Heising-Simons Foundation in Los Altos, or Palo Alto. It was in Palo Alto. The purpose of this was to bring together our friends from the philanthropic community, and they were very excited to hear what these panels had to say, and several new foundations are now interested in supporting Climate Crossroads. As I said, the kickoff summit was last summer. We're going to have the next summit on July 16th, 2024. It will be held here at the Academy, but also online. So if you want to tune in to find out exactly what sort of progress we're making on climate change, please do that. One of the most exciting new ventures under the Climate Crossroads banner is a congressional fellowship program. I think most of you are familiar with the kinds of congressional fellowship programs that scientific societies run, where they actually take a scientist and place them in a congressional office so they can help guide the staff on science issues. Well, this is kind of a reverse fellowship, because instead we are bringing in existing staffers, usually fairly senior people from the various committees, from the House of Representatives and from the Senate, and they are in a 9-month training program where they work with scientists here in order to achieve a number of things. First of all, building capacity for science-based policymaking, helping them understand how policies will play out in terms of our climate change future by actually helping them understand what are the issues associated with climate change. It also builds a bipartisan science policy community, because staffers from the Republican side get to know staffers from the Democratic side. They share their interest in solving climate problems and work together to address climate change. And it also provides all of these people with, I apologize for a very archaic term, it provides them with a Rolodex of who are the top people in science that they can contact when they've got questions. It creates a personal connection between the scientists and the policymakers. So we're extremely excited about this. Our initial cohort is already hard at work. And speaking of climate change, there's probably no place that is more the bullseye for climate impacts than the Bird's Foot Delta in the Gulf Coast. And our Gulf Research Program, which, as many of you know, resulted from a gift to the Academy of $500 million in a wasting endowment to be spent over 30 years to solve the, to try to address the issues of change in the Gulf region. And the Gulf Research Program has just announced a $22 million award for a new research consortium to advance understanding of the environmental and the also the human impacts that are affecting the Bird's Foot region of the Delta. LSU and Tulane are leading a consortium of 14 Gulf institutions to, first of all, project how the evolution will go for this very vulnerable region, and take a look at what might be alternative strategies to manage it while trying to trade off what is best for people and in the environment, but how do we do that without destroying the economy in the region? Because if people don't have jobs, obviously rising sea level is not going to be first on their agenda. And you can see here some quotes from leading people in the area of how pleased they are with this. Now, also under the category of catalyzing action, one of the best ways we catalyze action is not just through our programs, but also through reports, timely reports we put out that can advise the government. I think you have all seen in the news the controversies over facial recognition technology. The fact that it has been a boon to law enforcement and many other areas, but people are very concerned about privacy. So this report looked at the legal, societal, and ethical implications of using the technology and made recommendations on how to mitigate the potential harms and enact more comprehensive safeguards. This report has already been cited in a Department of Justice testimony to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission just last month, and the executive branch agencies are using their report as a blueprint for how to respond to Executive Order 14074, which is advancing effective, accountable policing and criminal justice practices to enhance public trust and public safety, which don't always go hand in hand. Another report which is catalyzing action, there's not a single person in the United States at least, and maybe more broadly, who doesn't know about the impact of the Human Genome Project. The Human Genome Project resulted from a report that the Academy did in 1988, and this report laid out a blueprint for how to sequence the human genome and predicted what might be the social and economic consequences if this program were to be a success. Of course, it spawned multi-billion-dollar industries and has totally changed how we understand who we are and where we came from. It has also been a boon in medical science as well. Well, this is a follow-on report to that, this report calls for a follow-on effort to the Human Genome Project to sequence RNA and its modifications. We think this could have similar impact. It also is presenting a roadmap for innovation for how we're actually going to do this. The goal is to make it possible to sequence any RNA from any biological system with all of its modifications. This achievement could lead to more personalized and targeted medical applications and also transformative changes in agriculture and other important sectors of the economy. Government, academia, and industry are convening to create a detailed roadmap based on the advice from this report, and we're also working on educational materials for high school students, because those are the scientists, the future scientists, who are going to inherit the benefits from this project. Okay, and then the last report I'll mention under the theme of catalyzing action is this new consensus study that was released last September on reducing intergenerational poverty. The sad fact is in the US, and I'm sure many other places, if you are born into poverty, it's more likely that you will remain in poverty for your entire life. So this report is addressing what are the long-term intergenerational effects that contribute to this endless cycle. Why is it so rare that someone can actually break out of it? And it assesses what the impact is on intergenerational poverty of a lot of programs that the nation is already investing in: income assistance, education, health, housing, other intervention programs. Which of them break the cycle and which of them actually reinforce the cycle, which is something we would not want to happen. And it identifies evidence-based programs and policies that could reduce the effects of intergenerational poverty. You can see it was widely covered in publications, and you can see some of the logos along the bottom of the slide. For those of you who haven't crawled around on the Academy web lately, I just wanted to mention that our wonderful group in communications is working to our second theme here is, or second objective, to build communities across disciplines and cultures. They've developed some theme pages to aggregate work all in one place. When someone on the outside, or even people on the inside, go to the Academy web, they don't know whether a project was done by DEPS or DELS or DBAS or PGA. So very often it would be hard to actually know what all the activities are. Reports are on National Academy Press, but all of the convenings and roundtables and other things aren't. So we now have a number of theme pages that you can land on the web that are on important topics such as climate change, AI, COVID, Ukraine, misinformation, reproductive health, et cetera. And these are one-stop shopping in an easy way to find out what we're doing. We're always looking for new ideas for topics for theme pages. So if you've got a great idea of work at the Academy that's been kind of spread across different groups and you'd like to see it all in one place, drop me a note and I'd be happy to put that forward. For example, just the other day we were having a discussion about how we're moving into wildfire season. And wouldn't it be good if we had a theme page on wildfire resilience, wildfire response, wildfire mitigation? So please let me know if you have other ideas. Also under the category of building communities across disciplines and cultures, I already mentioned our Climate Crossroads. And because it is a pan-academy activity, it is ideally suited to address issues that require natural sciences, social sciences, policy all together. And here are 4 of the initial themes that the Climate Crossroads is addressing: climate health and equity, accelerating decarbonization, which has a lot to do with systems and how people will accept decarbonization solutions, ensuring thriving ecosystems, and cultivating climate-resistant communities are 4 of the top topics that are being furthered through the Climate Crossroads. As an example of one of the products from this is accelerating decarbonization in the United States. This was a consensus study report that came out in October of last year. And in order to address this, we needed experts in, of course, technology. How are we going to decarbonize? But also policy. What kind of policy measures will actually drive decarbonization and which ones work against it? And also social sciences, because as I say, it's really important that people want to embrace these solutions. The report was quoted prominently in a letter sent by 19 senators and 112 House members to FERC. advocating that they strengthen and finalize its proposed transmission plan to support growing demand for clean energy. As you all know, we can create clean energy, but if we can't get it to the user, that's a problem. There was an Instagram Live with Girl Plus Environment and a series of podcasts, including several with resources for the future. Probably the most long-term effective way that the Academy has built communities across disciplines and cultures is through PNAS, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. PNAS is one of only a handful of journals that broadly covers all fields of science. And so for that reason, it speaks not to experts in a discipline, but it speaks to people across many disciplines, including interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary work. I've shown on the left side of the screen here the metrics for PNAS. Submissions are up with respect to last year, and the other numbers are very similar. This is the one activity that engages more NAS members than anything else, because you look at the number of editorial members that we need and numbers of reviewers, et cetera. It really involves the entire Academy. And I'm really pleased to see at a time when there's such growing competition in the publishing domain through both good journals expanding their family and also through pretty bad journals that probably shouldn't be published in any way, that we are still seeing submissions rising. A second newer member of the PNAS family is a journal called PNAS Nexus. Nexus was launched a few years ago. It is a gold open access journal. So PNAS, you can pay a fee to make your article open access, but in Nexus, all of the articles are open access. It was born that way. And Nexus is even broader than PNAS because it's a collaboration between the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academies of Engineering and Medicine, so it also includes work from engineers and medical professionals. These are the numbers for 2023, which are all climbing compared to when it was first launched. And so we're quite pleased with the trajectory for this journal. And for those of you who have not considered publishing in it, especially for work that is of interest broadly outside of just the narrow scientific community, this is a great choice. Now there's actually a third journal in the NAS family. It's called Issues in Science and Technology. It builds connections between scientists and policymakers, and most of the contributions to it are more on the theme of sort of opinion and editorial. This is not a journal that is for hard science analysis, although sometimes a lot of hard science analysis goes into informing those opinions. A sampling of recent topics is shown over on the left side. And in the middle of the slide, I've got some of the distinguished contributors. We regularly get people in science leadership outside of just the Academy's community that are contributing to this. The numbers for it are at the bottom, but it's one of the most highest ways that people are engaging with us. I mean, almost 300,000 views in any one month. We also know that this journal is being read at OSTP. And the reason we know that is that an issues editor, Lisa Marginelli, wrote an article for the spring issue pointing out that climate decisions and actions are increasingly focused at the local level rather than the national level. And the title of her piece was Mud, Muddling, and Science Policy. And as a result of that, Arati Prabhkar from OSTP, the director of OSTP, invited her on a field trip to a marsh in Maine to celebrate Earth Day. which she was happy to participate in. Okay. In addition to journal activities, another way that we build communities across disciplines and cultures is through our joint activities with academies in other nations. I think many of you are familiar with the Royal Society in the UK, and we established a forum with them back in 2008 that allows leaders from the National Academy of Sciences and leaders from the Royal Society to bring together experts in various fields that are of common interest to both academies in order to discuss, educate, and further topics. These forums are all live streamed, so you can watch, and they're also available on the web so that you don't have to deal, if you're in California, with a huge time zone problem when they're in the UK. They alternate every other year between being held here at the Academy and at the Royal Society. The 2023 forum was on research access to data. That was held last September, and we're looking forward to the 2024 forum on science in the age of AI, and that will be June 11th and 12th in London. Okay. In addition to, of course, having bilaterals with the Royal Society, we also are continuing to have bilaterals with China. We recently held at the Bellagio Center in Italy. When I first heard it was going to be at the Bellagio Center, I had Las Vegas in my mind. But then I got, no, it's going to be in Italy. I thought, oh, that'll be much better. Okay, so a group of leaders from both China and the US came together to discuss issues that require cooperation between the two countries rather than competition. So we probably aren't going to have a dialogue with them on, quantum computing, but there are many issues that we know we have to identify together. At this meeting, a vision resulted to create a collaborative for planetary health with the two countries working together. It's going to be focused initially on human health, food systems, and urbanization. And these are all topics which have particular strength in China, but also a lot of interest here in the US. Participants at this meeting included Bruce Alberts, Karen Sato, Roger Beachy, James Chen, Peter Glick, Cherry Murray, and Peggy Hamburg from the NAM. All right, so one of the longest running, but probably least visible activities here at the Academy is the Committee on International Security and Arms Control, otherwise known as CSAC. This is a body that was established during the Cold War. So it goes back to before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's a security dialogue that started out initially just with the Soviet Union, so that scientists from the National Academy of Sciences could reach out to scientists from Russia and have discussions and have collaborations on issues in the security space that create contacts so that when a real emergency comes up, there will be a way to reach them and hopefully avert bad outcomes. This was all established at a time when there were no diplomatic relations between the US and the Soviet Union. The two countries weren't talking, and they frankly didn't like each other very much. And so the fact that the scientists could build a rapport was very important in creating opportunities for Track 2 dialogues. Now, since the end of the Cold War, CSAC has spread out. Now, it has maintained ties with Russia, but also now with China, India, and other countries to promote communications on critical security problems. And initially, when CSAC was stood up, it was to avoid nuclear holocaust. But now it's expanded to space security, hypersonic weapons, AI, machine learning, autonomous military systems, cybersecurity, of course, terrorism, climate change, and other impacts. We are always looking for members who are interested in contributing to CSAC. So if anyone has an interest in this activity, please drop me a note, let me know, and I'll put you in contact with the CSAC leadership. Another committee that tends to work behind the scenes, but I know is well known to all of you because so many members support it, is our Committee on Human Rights, or otherwise known as CHR. I know many of you are correspondents with CHR, so you regularly get missives from them, and many of you donate directly through the annual fund to support CHR. It's best known for its behind-the-scenes efforts to advocate on behalf of scientists, engineers, and medical professionals who suddenly find themselves being persecuted by their own governments, thrown in jail, whatever, for only doing their jobs. They aren't doing anything subversive, they're just being scientists, medical professionals, or engineers. What you can see here on the left side of the screen is in the last year, CHR advocated for over a dozen professional colleagues who found significant relief from the intervention of CHR. You know, getting children back who had been of scientists when the children had been kidnapped in Haiti by gangs. You know, really important things that matter to families and matter to the ability of people to do science. CHR has recently expanded its activities to ones that are more visible, such as launching course modules that train students on issues of forced displacement, which are happening more and more. Two other activities are a partnership with the South African Academy on Science and Human Rights, which you see just right of center, and also a web-based collection of materials at the intersection of climate and human rights. CHR accepts no public funding because it would undermine the credibility of this committee if they were viewed as a tool of the US government. And that is why your donations to CHR are so important. Now, under the third goal of increasing capacity in the US and abroad, the National Academy has a large number of projects we're doing that are bilateral with other nations to try to help increase capacity and other things as well. These pictures are from the second US-Africa Frontiers of Science, Engineering, and Medicine Symposium in Morocco, where 100 early career researchers from the US and the African Union countries, the young people, they're all under 45, came together themselves, they put together their topics, they invited the speakers, they had a wonderful meeting. I was so impressed by the quality of these young scholars from across Africa. It really was wonderful. Now, this Frontiers of Science is a brand that was actually started years ago when Frank Press was president of the National Academy. And Press's idea at the time was that scientists here in the US are, especially young ones under 45, are too siloed into their own disciplines. And they don't meet with people outside their fields, they go to their disciplinary science meetings, and in addition, they don't even know how to talk to each other because they don't speak the same language. So when Frank started this, he wanted to give leadership opportunities to young scientists, but also give them experience in talking to interdisciplinary audiences. And Frank's concern at the time was that the US government was considering investment in a number of big science projects, the superconducting super collider, various space telescopes, whatever. And he was concerned that the physicists couldn't talk to the biologists, and the biologists couldn't talk to the geoscientists, and unless people developed techniques for talking to each other, we were going to be in trouble. The Frontiers program, of course, has been very successful. I think more than 10% of the members of the Academy are alumni of the Frontiers program, including myself. And now it is expanded outside of the U.S. It first expanded to Germany, and then China and Japan, and now to the developing world as well. The meeting next year for the U.S.-Africa meeting is going to be in Rwanda. Okay, another way that we're increasing capacity in the U.S. and abroad is with our Science and Innovation Fund for Ukraine. The picture on the left was taken at Ukraine House just like 2 weeks ago when the National Academy of Sciences announced that it was raising $15 to $20 million in support for Ukrainian science. The concern at the Academy here has always been that with Ukraine having such budget problems, they can't afford to support their science community, but yet their science community will be essential for rebuilding Ukraine when this war is over. So we want to help that community stay in place, stay engaged, prevent the young men from joining the army and becoming cannon fodder, et cetera. This newest program is going to give fellowships to support both early and mid-career scientists to keep them in the fields, workshops and institutes on scientific topics that contribute to Ukraine's future. What I'll say is in this picture on the far left is a president of Bank of America. He was at this meeting too to discuss investment by Bank of America into lab bench to products, industrial products at within Ukraine, so that this investment in science will lead to new innovation that will help the economy. The head of NASDAQ was also there to discuss creating an actual market for innovation in Ukraine. So we're very excited about this, and so we can go all the way to training on commercialization research with these investments. And I have to say, members of the Academy have been incredibly generous in supporting efforts in Ukraine. And the Ukrainians are incredibly grateful. The second goal in the Academy's strategic plan is to improve public understanding and appreciation of science. And the particular objectives under that are, first of all, to reward science communication, promote understanding of science, and third, improve portrayal of science. Now, rewarding science communication, the reason we put this into the strategic plan in 2020 was that we had a large Keck gift that had supported awards for journalists, for feature articles, for articles on deadline, for books. You all remember we used to have a book talk here at the annual meeting, and the book talk was the person that won that Keck Award for communication. Well, that money expired, so we had to work hard to find a new sponsor, and fortunately, Eric and Wendy Schmidt stepped forward with a new program in Awards for Excellence in Science and Communication. And what I love about this new version of Awards for Communications is they not only reward the journalists who get the science right, but they reward scientists who get the communication right. And so there are a number of, especially young scientists, that are being recognized, and actually financial awards too for doing a good job of science communication. You can see what the submissions are in year 3 of the report. When you only have 24 winners, this is a very, very steep competition, and the winners are truly amazing. The second goal, or the second objective under Goal 2, is to increase capacity in the U.S. and abroad. Last year, we organized what, in my estimation, was probably the finest event we have ever had here at the National Academy. It was the Nobel Prize Summit on the topic of misinformation, but in order to make it sound like not such a downer, we call it Truth, Trust, and Hope, because that's indeed what we wanted to generate, was hope that we can actually solve this issue. We hosted more than 1,700 in-person attendees here at the Academy. They didn't even all fit in the auditorium. We had to have overflow rooms in the lecture room and down the hall. In addition to the 1,700 in-person people, we had 10,000 people online watching this from nations all over the world. And what was, I think, very innovative about this program was the program for the online audience was parallel but not the same as the program for the people here. All of you have probably tuned in to some big auditorium event virtually, and you feel like you're just getting a second-class experience compared to those who are actually in the audience. The online program was very personalized. It was smaller side conversations with me and other people who were at this symposium, and I think they all really felt like everyone was speaking directly to them, not to the audience, and they just happened to be flies on the wall. And the diversity of the audience was amazing. As you see, people from 70 countries, and there were people from industry, people from government here. This wasn't scientists speaking to other scientists. We were really speaking to the world in this event. Now, under the second goal, or the third goal of promoting understanding of science, I already mentioned the Climate Crossroads initiative to you, but in addition to doing good things like studying important problems and the Congressional Fellowship Program, Climate Crossroads has also established a monthly webinar series that convenes high-level, cross-cutting, nonpartisan conversations on issues relevant to action on climate change. There are 33 of these that are posted online. They involve 98 climate experts, and there have been 75,000 views of these climate conversations. Okay, so we just had earlier this week Earth Day, and in terms of promoting understanding of science, there's no better group to start with than actually kids. You know, they're just sponges and they're so curious. And so we held here on last Saturday, so a couple days before Earth Day, a big event here at the building that was sort of a family fun day to commemorate Earth Day. And the purpose of this was for the kids to come in, and they get these little kits, and they have to go around to various stations to learn how to be better stewards of this planet, all through hands-on activities. The turnout was terrific. All of the families were having lots and lots of fun. And we are so grateful for the partnerships with all these other groups within the Washington area. Smithsonian turned out in great force with lots of hands-on activities. NOAA, NASA, USGS, DOE, even DC's Department of Energy and Environment. So it was a really fun day, and we're hoping to do it again. All of our collaborators are eager to see that. And here are just some scenes from the kids going around doing their activities on Earth Day. Okay, so now something, I mean, if Earth Day was fun, this is even more fun. And this is our LabX program. LabX is an outreach program to promote understanding of science. But the thing about LabX is it is not targeted at the families that are going to come to Earth Day. There are a lot of people that would never come to a science open house or would never, for example, watch a documentary, a scientific documentary on television. So how do we reach those people? Well, the answer is through comedy. So LabX has this program where they do live shows in comedy clubs. And the format of this is, for those of you who are NPR aficionados, you probably are familiar with Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. So this wrong answers only is done in a Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me style of format. And so for the first year, this program was filling smallish venues in New York City and Los Angeles. And now it's been so successful that we're moving up to the big time with big venues, such as larger facilities and comedy festivals, because this has been so well received. And I want to show you a clip.
Now, this is our chance to ask our very first questions of a dog cognition expert. So we call this, You Do What? And Josh, what is the first question that you want to ask a dog scientist?
Why won't my dog sleep through the night? Why is she up all the time like a human baby?
Oh, yeah. Well, dogs are, descended from wolves.
Sure.
They are not diurnal.
Mine's a pug. So.
Yeah, no, some are more descended than others. And
I love
she's
that.
way far descended.
That's such a complimentary way of talking about a pug.
So I particularly liked this one because for those of you who know me well, whenever people ask me, well, what would you have done with your life if this geophysics thing hadn't worked out for you? My answer is always that I would have been a dog psychologist. And this young woman is the closest thing I've ever seen to a dog psychologist. She's a canine dog expert. A canine cognition expert, yes. Okay, so in addition to these comedy events, LabX is also developing games, because what a sneaky way to teach people about science, but to do it as they're gaming. Some of you might recall in previous years, I mentioned a game called Cat Colony Crisis, which was an online game in which you, as the commander of a spaceship that has a bunch of rambunctious felines on it, and you have to get this spaceship of cats to another planet that they're going to colonize. But unfortunately, a pandemic breaks out on the spaceship. So how do you get the maximum number of cats safely to their planet? And of course, the spaceship is allegorical for planet Earth, and the disease is allegorical for COVID, and the cats are, of course, all of us. And, as academics, we know how hard it is to herd cats, and that's exactly what we had to do during the pandemic. But now there are several other games. A board game called Glitch Squad. Now, how many of you have played when you were younger the game Clue? Okay, so imagine the Clue game, but you have to use actual forensic evidence to claim that the murder was by in the conservatory with the lead pipe by Colonel Mustard. So all of it's based on real forensic evidence. So this board game has been a big hit. So the LabX people are now developing a tabletop role-playing game, which was suggested by our previous Home Secretary, Sue Wessler, and it's on plant blindness. And it challenges players to see plants in a whole new light, working with both Sue and Ari Novi, who's head of the San Diego Botanical Garden. So look forward to seeing that game coming out, and have fun with Glitch Squad and Cat Colony Crisis. So yet another way to promote understanding of science. This one involves a partnership with a group called Theater of War. For those of you not familiar with it, Theater of War is a production company that addresses topics in public health and other social issues using theater as a way to reach people who might not automatically be interested in a science event. We previously worked with them during one of our Nobel Prize summits, where we had Nobel laureates doing a reading of Oedipus. And so now this is a new collaboration between LabX and the cultural programs here at the National Academy of Sciences. And it's going to feature readings from An Enemy of the People, and it's designed to spark dialogue around the inevitable clash that comes with tensions between public health in a community and economic well-being. We saw that play out in spades during COVID. Do you close businesses down to save people's lives? But what does that do to the economy, and what's the trade-off? It's a very difficult problem. There's going to be, you'll see here in the lineup, a lot of familiar faces, famous people from both theater and from science who contributed to this. There's going to be a PBS NewsHour piece coming out on this soon. So one of my favorite programs here at the Academy for promoting better science understanding and countering misinformation is a series of web pages called Based on Science. Now, Based on Science was triggered when we got communication from Google saying that there were so many topics that the public was searching for on the internet, and all Google could serve up is misinformation. There was no scientifically validated information that could counter the misinformation. And it was easy to understand why that could happen, because many of the questions that came in from the public were frankly to a scientist so outlandish that why would you waste your time and effort addressing it? For example, one of the things that people were searching for is, if I suck on lemons, will it cure my cancer? Well, you know, I'm sure there are cancer experts out here, and how many of you have thought of writing a paper on why sucking lemons doesn't cure cancer? I mean, you just don't do that. So we got a list from Google of these topics, and we found experts in the science community who could professionally address the question, but we paired them with science writers who would write up the response at a level that could be understood by an 8th grader. And frankly, that is the level at which you need to communicate on the web. The project has expanded now to 13 different topics, which are widely susceptible to misinformation, such as climate change, COVID, cancer, and a number of other issues. So the site rapidly became the most visited site of any place on the Academy's web. And you can see we've got some goals for the coming year are to expand the topics on it and also refresh some of the content. For example, some of the things we posted during COVID, we can give better answers now because there's been a lot more research. I mean, 650 visitors per day is actually really good for the Academy. Distinctive Voices is another program that promotes understanding of science. For those of you who don't live in the Southern California region, you may not be familiar with this because it's run out of our Beckman Center in Irvine, California. And it's a program that does weekday night lectures by scientists, but to the public. So you imagine giving a lecture on your topic, but making sure that it's accessible to non-scientists. The program is very cost-effective because what they look for are scientists that they know are good communicators who are either at an Academy's meeting at Beckman or might be visiting a department at UC Irvine. And so we just grab the people who are there. It fulfills the Academy's objective to increase public education and understanding of matters involving science, engineering, technology, and health. And it's also spawned a Friends of Distinctive Voices in the community where people from around the area pay $150 for a subscription to it that gets them special seating, invitations to private conversations with the lecturer, et cetera. And so the Friends program has helped support and keep this event running. Okay, the last objective under Goal 2 of communication is to improve the portrayal of scientists. So one new program we're going to be launching soon is called I Was Born. And this program was inspired by the council talks. Every time we have a council meeting, one council member is tapped to give a brief summary of what their life trajectory was, how they got interested in science, what their family background was like. And I'll tell you, I have just been so overwhelmed by some of these stories. I remember particularly Sylvia Sayers. Sylvia's in chemistry at MIT. She talked about how her mother and her mother's sister were escaping from the Baltic states during World War II. And instead, they got put on a train by the Nazis and sent to Germany. When they got off the train, there was a young German guard standing by a gate. He saw these two beautiful young women coming off, and he motioned to them, come here. He didn't speak their language, and he pointed to a gate. And all they could say in German was, "Is this good?" And he nodded yes. They went out the gate and walked to Switzerland. Everyone else on that train was sent to a concentration camp. And had it not been for the generosity of that one person, Sylvia wouldn't be here. And so these stories are amazing. This one, so this is taking these stories of people and how they got into science and making them more widely available for other people. They're going to be short, just 6-7 minutes long each, and hopefully they will help people understand the variety of people who are contributing to science and some of the challenges they faced in their careers. Here's the lineup. Sue Wessler is one of the first people who's going to be profiled, but notice how many of the people on this list are not, lab-based research scientists. They are rather examples of people from the technical science workforce. And that is a large and growing group in this nation, and we want to make sure students understand what the career paths are and what the benefits are of these kind of pathways into STEM. We're hoping that together these stories will generate empathy, understanding, connection, and curiosity about what it means to be a STEM professional. Okay, and now finally on to Goal 3 of the NAS Strategic Plan. It's to improve the culture and practice of science. And here are the 4. I'm going to have to speed up here. So let's start with the Strategic Council for Research Excellence, Integrity, and Trust. This is a new body. It's only been around a few years here. It basically does everything under this goal. It sets standards, it promotes excellence and diversity, it transforms thinking on the reward system, and supports the basic research enterprise. On the left side of the screen are some of the efforts that have been completed today. A companion book on being a scientist that's called On Leading a Lab is coming out of a workshop, or at least being scoped by that workshop. And look for a new published article in PNAS on trends in U.S. public confidence in science and opportunities for progress. On the right side, I show a few other things that are still in the works, like harmonizing researchers' disclosures. Don't you hate doing different COI for everything that you do? So we're working to try to ease that. We hope to put out a paper on indicators of trustworthy research. Used to be, if it's peer-reviewed, you trusted it. If it wasn't peer-reviewed, you didn't. It's gotten more complicated now, and we can't use that anymore. We have work on authorship, giving credit and accountability, and improving the retraction process. These are the people on the Strategic Council right now. A few people are going to be rotating off and some new people coming on, but I think what is amazing about this group is every single person that the co-chairs, me and David and France, asked to stay on, agreed to do it. They think that this is a really good use of their time. Okay, in addition, our journals, which I talked earlier about their stats, there are new initiatives to improve reproducibility and transparency in published articles. So our journals are trying to lead by example. And notice how many of these new reproducibility and transparency initiatives were actually triggered by the work of the Strategic Council. And they're actually using the work of the Strategic Council to decide what to do. Another report that's setting standards is this one that was released about a year ago on population descriptors in genetics and genomics. This is important because the report draws a sharp distinction between race, which is a socially constructed idea, and genetic variation, which is a quantifiable description of heredity that reflects centuries of populations mixing across the globe. The recommendations for the report have been picked up by the NIH and a number of journals in how they are going to connect genetics to other population factors. In terms of promoting excellence and diversity in science, I think many of you are familiar with CWISM, our Committee on Women, Science, Engineering, and Medicine. They put out that important report on sexual harassment in academia, but they're also continuing to look in particular at the double disadvantage that women of color have in science and technology. And they're looking at what strategies can alleviate the added caregiving of women in science fields. We saw that in spades during COVID, where women were taking care of children and elderly relatives while still trying to do their jobs. There's a new initiative that's the Science, Engineering, and Technology Equity Roundtable, which is also promoting excellence and diversity. This group is looking at promising approaches to improve STEM equity. The Gulf Research Program, which I also mentioned, is also partnering with philanthropy on a $10.7 million of awards to support community-engaged research on how data on the social determinants of health could improve public health systems. They've given 7 awards to HBCUs and other minority-serving institutions in the Gulf state. Digital twins. So when I first saw this, I thought, are they talking about the social media habits of my identical twin daughters? But no. So a digital twin is a simulated system that mimics one that is either unique, like our planet, or not accessible for direct intervention, like our bodies. No one wants us scientists to come, probing our bodies to try different things out without a lot more work. So this new report considers the potential of digital twins to transform scientific research, industrial practice, and many aspects of daily lives. Perez Moine from Stanford, an NAS/NAE member, served on this. One thing they did was they first of all defined what is and what isn't a digital twin, because there was a lot of confusion about that. Let's see. We also had a retreat at Sunnylands. Many of you were there, and see your picture right up here. And this was a collaboration between the Annenberg School of Public Policy at Penn and the National Academy. It was held at the Annenberg Estate in Palm Springs, and it was looking at how is AI impacting science, and in particular, what challenges is it posing to the norms of science. As scientists, we all value transparency, accountability, attribution, reproducibility. None of those are possible when you use generative AI. So the results of this gathering are going to appear in PNAS very shortly. We also support the scientific community through reports. We put out a science strategy for the human exploration of Mars. And this, of course, is really directed to the scientific community itself and to the funders of it. It's going to identify and prioritize science campaigns for the first 3 landings of human scale on Mars. And then finally, let me end with this. Our communications group did the first ever stakeholder impact survey across our members, our volunteers, general STEM professionals, our supporters, our funders, et cetera. We had a very positive response from all these groups. And in fact, what was clear was we asked them how familiar they are with us and then how much they support us. And to know us is to love us. The more people knew about us, the higher they rated us. And so you can see the favorability ratings that came from NAS members. There were nearly 4,000 responses to this survey, and what we noticed was our Achilles heel. Our Achilles heel is with general STEM professionals, people who one day may be members, but aren't now, and they aren't familiar with what we do. So we actually need to do a better job of reaching out to general STEM professionals. I want to just give a plug for on June 26th of this year, we are going to hold right here the inaugural State of the Science Address. All of you are familiar with the President's State of the Union address, which almost never mentions science. So there's going to be a lot of science in the State of the Science Address. And it's going to be a quantitative overview of the health of the enterprise. We've got people coming from policy, academia, government, philanthropy. Earlier that day is going to be GWIR, the Government University Industry Roundtable's 40th anniversary. So we're pulling in all the people from industry and other fields that are going to be there. And we'll have listening sessions right after the GWIR anniversary to inform OSTP's inaugural National Science and Technology Strategy, which was asked for in the CHIPS and Science Act. And it's organized by the Strategic Council, and it's supported by all of you who gave to the Cicerone Fund. So thank you very much. And finally, thank you to every single one of our members, our volunteers, staff, and sponsors, actually, who contributed to a phenomenal year at the NAS. So now it's time for a brief break, and then we'll welcome you all back here for our Science Symposium on AI. Thank you all very much.